about 15 years ago, a couple of people came out of Albany, New York, doing TV. One person made it big. The other person was me. The one person that made it big was Andrew Catalon, our buddy from CBS Sports, and he calls games for the NFL, of course, with the Jaguars. He was like the guy calling games for the Jags a couple of years ago, and he got bigger and bigger, and now he only calls like 1 or 2 games a year. Also calls Masters coverage and the NCAA tournament. He's one of the best in the business. He's our buddy, and he's out in Vegas at the Mountain West Conference tournaments. Say hello to Andrew Catalon.
What I was trying to say before when you gave me that incredibly nice introduction is that you're the superstar because you were in every single one of the commercials during that last break that I watched. That is a new record for most appearances in the commercial.
Yeah, I didn't warn you about that. Sorry. We're trying to spread the love a little bit here on this new endeavor. Thanks for hanging with us. You're out in Vegas. Let me ask you the question I did ask. You're at the Mountain West Conference tournament. How good is that conference, by the way? How entertaining will that be today? And are you calling all of them? I think there are 4 quarterfinal games today.
Yeah, there's 4 games today. I'm doing 2 of them. Then I'm calling both semis tomorrow night and a championship game Saturday. This is a banner year for the Mountain West. They're expecting to have 6 teams in the tournament, and if UNLV is able to win this conference tournament and it's on their home floor and they're red hot, they could have as many as 7. New Mexico is a bit of a bubble team. They got a big one against Boise State tonight, but I've been coming out here for over a decade for this conference tournament. This is probably the best it's ever been, so we'll see how they do in the NCAAs this year. Obviously, San Diego State going all the way to the championship game a year ago.
Andrew, I've been super curious, man. As someone who wants to be a commentator, possibly one day I'll probably be more like on Nickelodeon or something like that, calling the games. But like, you do NFL, you do PGA Tour, you do college basketball, you do everything. What is the difference in terms of prep time? And like with a sport like golf, is it a little more laid back and casual, or you can kind of just be a little more easygoing, as opposed to like football or basketball where it's nonstop action?
Yeah, they're all very different. I would say, Austin, that NFL is the most challenging to prepare for because there's guys like you and Brent who watch every single second of a Jaguars game every week, and I'm kind of parachuting in for, as Brent said before, 1 or 2 games a year. So it's on me to get up to speed to know the team as well as I can. So football weeks are really intense. College basketball, a little different. Obviously, there's fewer players to prepare for, really only 8-9 guys on a team compared to 53 for NFL. And golf is a whole different animal. Storytelling is so much more important than any of those other 3. You have time. The pacing is slower. And really, you're just focusing on the top half of the leaderboard for the most part. So all 3 are very different. I would say college basketball this time of year is intense because I haven't seen a lot of these teams, but on a whole, NFL is probably the most challenging.
Andrew Catalon with us here on our Brent Austen show, kind enough to take some time ahead of the Mountain West Conference tournament from Las Vegas. How good is March Madness going to be? You might have been able to hear some of our conversation. I just have this feeling, Andrew, it's always good, obviously, but I feel like there's just a lot unknown. I don't know if Purdue and UConn are going to run away with it or somebody like that. Are we about to get an unbelievable tournament filled with drama?
Brent, last year I had the Purdue loss to FDU, the 116 game, and, obviously nobody saw that coming. I think college basketball has really changed to, quote unquote, when we were kids, which is now becoming longer and longer ago. With the NIL money, college basketball has become so much older. It's really hard to win with freshmen. I think that really hurt Purdue last year. Obviously, they had Zach Edey, but their guards were young. And even though Fairleigh Dickinson was, a small school team, they had guys that were in their 20s. I mean, there's guys in the Mountain West that are 26 years old that I'm going to call this week. That's unheard of in the past. So I think that's why it creates a little more upsets. You've got older teams that aren't scared or intimidated of the big stage.
Andrew, and do you think that kind of, in terms of college basketball, that's great for the sport, right? Because it's always about the mid-major, right? The Cinderella story, and that's where experience can come into play a little bit. But at the same time now, I feel like with the transfer and everything and the NIL deals, players are constantly moving, going to bigger universities. Do you think mid-majors will still have their run, will still have their time, or are we starting to see maybe them dying out a little bit now because everyone is transferring and taking those NIL deals?
Yeah, it's a great point, Austin. I mean, I just feel like if you're at a smaller school and you've got a player that averages 20-7 in his freshman year, he might be gone. I mean, there's so much turnover, there's so much change that I feel for some of these smaller schools is that you can't really build a program anymore. It's hard to say I'm going to get a guy who's a freshman, I'm going to develop him into an all-conference player over 4 years. If he's any good, he might be gone. That's kind of the sad part I feel sometimes of this new college basketball world. It's not that case for every smaller school or mid-major, as you point out, but I save all my boards every year, and I'll pull them out, and it's almost like there's nobody I can steal notes from last year because they're all on someone else's team now. So it's just crazy how much turnover there is.
Oh, and by the way, that impacts everything. That impacts programs. That impacts impacts coaches. It impacts kids and parents too, because there's no path for a kid going to join a program as a freshman, say a redshirt freshman, or get in the weight room and say, I'm going to play the next year or my junior year. You just can't do that anymore because they're likely going to bring somebody else in, and you never saw it coming that you were going to have to compete with that kid. UNF is a great example here. They lost a couple of guys through the transfer portal because of NIL money that they just couldn't pay. They're going to lose another one. Chaz Lanier was unbelievable this year for UNF. He was averaging 20-something a game in ASUN play, and he's going to probably go get couple $100,000 to go play somewhere else, and he has graduated, so that's a little bit of a different scenario. You can't blame the kid. So it has totally changed the landscape in college basketball and really in college sports. All right, I don't want to keep you too long, so I want to hit on a couple other things like the NFL. You follow, obviously, the NFL very close. You've done a lot of Jags games, a lot of AFC South games, Andrew. Last time I saw you this year, it was the Houston and Jaguars games, and we thought the Jags that was a big win and on their way to doing some special things. Then they collapsed down the stretch of the season. What are your thoughts right now on the Jags, where they sit, especially after losing Calvin Ridley yesterday to the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I saw you Thanksgiving. I thought that was a huge win. I thought it was really going to be a springboard for the Jags, and it didn't turn out that way, as you guys all know. I really like Gabe Davis. I call the Bills preseason games for the last 7-8 years, so I've seen a lot of Gabe. He's a big playmaker. You guys know, but he's not going to maybe be as consistent a threat as Ridley from the start of the game to the end. But when you need a big catch on third down, or you got to go down the field and make a play, he can be that guy. So obviously Ridley got a ton of money, and I'm sure the Jags would have loved to have kept him. But I like Gabe. I mean, he wants to be great too. He's got that makeup about him. He has high aspirations for what his career should be. So I think that's a good fit. And look, the division's a lot better on a whole. I mean, you can't say that, this team is not going to have it. I mean, I love what the Titans have done. I think they now, I don't know about Callahan as a coach. We're going to find that out. But I think as a roster, they are a lot better than they were last year. And I think Houston's going to be, one of the favorites, if not the favorite again. And the Colts, will see what they have with Richardson. But I think that for a division that was kind of down for a while, now you can make a case it's one of the stronger divisions out there. And that'll only make it tougher for the Jags. But I think they've got the talent, and I really like Coach Peterson to make some noise again this year.
Andrew, real quick, man, I want to get back to just your schedule. It seems like kind of like a gauntlet coming up here in the next couple of days for you in terms of your voice and everything, calling back-to-back Tommy Namsky games here. I mean, do you have any special thing that you do for your voice? Do you have a special tea, a special concoction, or do you just get your 8 hours of sleep, start out bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and get ready to roll?
Yeah, it's great. It's something that's on my mind a lot, Austin. In fact, a few years ago, I started working with a vocal coach. This is really getting in the weeds here, but he's given me warm-up exercises that I'll do with my voice before a game because – this next 3 weeks, I'll call 5 games this week, 6 games next week, 3 games the following week. I got to stay healthy. And so, a lot of water. I have throat lozenges, but the big thing is, not to do as many commercials as Brent. As long as I stay away from that workload, I'll probably be okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know you had that. I wonder, do others that call, like when you think of Jim Nantz, obviously, and I think you potentially could be following in his footsteps here. And we always talk about how he goes from like the Final Four to the Masters. And I mean, is that pretty common with guys that call a bunch of games from Harlan to others to Tarico that you'll have to do some of those warm up things like almost like you're a singer?
Yeah, I don't know if I think some of the others do that to answer your question. I always just never thought of it like if you're a pitcher, like your daughter, Brent, a softball pitcher, she has a pitching coach, right, who works on her pitching mechanics. I never thought of my voice as like an instrument that needed to be tuned. It was just like, all right, show up and call the game. But to be honest, I probably would lose my voice if I didn't do some of the things that I have to do. So again, it's a very minor thing, but maybe there's a pitching coach that gives Kaylee like one little, tip on her, on her fastball, and maybe she uses that. And for me, there's like one little thing that he's given me that I can maybe, work with in this busy time.
He's working on his craft, Austen, like you are, getting into a cage. I mean, you put that headset on, a microphone in front of your face, and it's like you getting into a cage to take on whoever in Las Vegas, by the way, later in April.
No, without a doubt, man. I didn't know that so much goes into it. Now I don't want to be a commentator anymore. That sounds like a lot of work, man. Especially getting your 8 hours of sleep, man. I'm trying to go out and, I'm trying to see what the cities have to offer here. Andrew, I have one more question for you real quick. Obviously a guy who's you've been to Augusta before. You've called the Masters. Do they put the microphones right on the birds? Are they tiny microphones, or how can we hear the birds so well? Or is somebody maybe hitting some buttons a little bit, turning them up a little bit? And can you hear the birds when you're calling the Masters tournament?
I don't think there's buttons, and I understand your question because I know there's some talk about it. But when I'm there, and Brent, you've been there, I mean, it's almost like you're in this sanctuary of golf and nature, and those sounds are legit. So I don't think there's any buttons being pushed, because if you went, you'd hear them too.
Okay. Fantastic. I mean, hey,
no holds
I
barred
believe
here.
you. Brent can be
Thank
bought,
you.
so, okay.
Brent can be bought. Yeah, that's the story around here, apparently, that I can be. All right, last thought. Speaking of the golf world, which has been crazy, you know what we're feeling here, Andrew? Like the whole live stuff, the where the PGA Tour is. When you have a tournament like this at the Players, or when we see you in Augusta at the Masters, I'm just not sure it matters as much. I think some of these events are so big that you actually can still enjoy the golf tournament. And right now we're enjoying it. It's a beautiful week here in Ponte Vedra, and Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele, some of the biggest names in the game, are at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think it's a big weekend for the PGA Tour. It would be great to have some of these big names coming down the stretch on Sunday, battling it out for a Players title. There's been so much of that other stuff, which you referenced, that it'd be great just to watch a Sunday of golf, and then that's kind of what I'm hoping for, not only this weekend, but in Augusta in a few weeks. So you're right. I mean, I think that these events are really what golf fans need in a way. We want to get away from all that other talk and just watch, and hopefully that's the case this weekend.
Hey, man, we appreciate taking a few minutes. Love catching up with you, and probably see you at Augusta after a busy few weeks of the NCAA tournament. Good luck calling all those games, and if you want to hang on for the next few minutes, you can listen to a few more commercials here in the break.
Boys, sorry about the technical delay, but it was great to be with you, and we'll do it again soon. Thanks so much.